Hello everyone, I'm back with another Reddit Addicts episode. If you find my videos entertaining, please kindly subscribe and like them. Thanks to everyone for your suggestions and kind notes. Now, let's get started with today's exciting stories.
I've cheated on my husband with another woman. My marriage has been in trouble for the past year, but instead of trying to really face it and try to fix things, I just tried to sweep things under the rug. I'm a people pleaser, and often do things just to make people happy, even if I'm miserable. I've done the same when it comes to our sex life. We hardly have sex anymore, I just don't want to. I'm tired of putting on an act like I even want to have sex. The only reason I have, in the past, is that I know how important it is to my husband, and I don't want him to think it's something he's done wrong. It's my problem, a problem I've had for a long time. My inability to experience pleasure isn't his fault, and I've never let on that it is a real problem. His business, which I helped him start, has really taken off, and it's all he talks about now. It's also required a lot of my time, and I've become resentful of that. I've tried to set boundaries about what I will do and won't do, but I've consistently ignored the boundaries and given in to what he needs from me, just so I don't rock the boat. I'm so tired of my needs being ignored, but I also realize that it's all my fault for not standing up for what I need and sticking to my guns about things. The business has taken over our lives, and our bank accounts, and our marriage. I am so proud of what my husband has accomplished, but I don't want to be involved anymore. He feels that if we can't work together, that we probably can't make a relationship work. I begged him to go to therapy with me, but he has flatly refused. I've felt so helpless and alone, and I feel like he hasn't taken my concerns to heart. That's no excuse for what I did, but it just explains where my head has been at. I was at a friend's house, working on an art project, when one of her friends walked in the door, and immediately I felt like I knew this woman, and that I wanted to know this woman, all at the same time. I was not thinking of her in a sexual way, I just felt so drawn to her, and wanted to be friends. Fast forward a few weeks, and we were at another function together, and we made plans to go out to an art festival with another woman. It was lovely, and she was very complimentary towards me, but it was all very platonic. The next day, I felt compelled to call her and ask her to dinner after she got back from a trip she was taking. I figured that we could get together when she got back, several weeks from that point, but she instead suggested meeting up that next night. The evening was great, and as the drinks flowed, the conversation veered off into talking about how a lot of her exes were straight girls, and I mentioned that I wasn't exactly straight. We went to leave the bar, and as I was driving her back to her place, just down the street, we came to two girls laying partially in the street, clearly drugged out of their minds. We stopped and offered them help, at which time she touched my shoulder and asked if I was comfortable driving them home, and did I feel safe. When she touched me, there were bells and whistles, and it was like an electric current shot through my body. We got the girls' homes, and then we went back to her place and had a drink and chatted, no funny business. When I went to leave, it was awkward, and we went in for a hug, but then it was turned into a kiss. I knew I had to leave or it would go further. I saw her a few other times, with other people, and there was a definite electricity in the air. And I was on a path that I felt like I wanted to be on, even though I knew that I was on the road to betraying my husband. Somehow in my mind, since it was with a woman, I felt like it was different. I know now that that is absolutely not the case, and I was fooling myself to justify what it is I wanted to do. We ended up getting together a few nights down the road, and had the most amazing sex I've ever had. I felt like I finally understood why so many people I've known have let sex rule their decisions, and I felt like I understood what the big deal was. If it were just sex, I could end it, and just be happy for that glimpse of pleasure that I had, and move on so as not to hurt my husband, but it's an emotional affair at this point. I feel like I can be more honest with her, and that she actually listens to me. But I also know that it's not a fair comparison, because everyone is attentive in the beginnings of relationships. It's the honeymoon period. I was once in love with my husband, and he was also attentive and romantic once, so I realize that I'm not being fair. I'm torn because my husband deserves better than me. He deserves someone that will be faithful and desire him. I love him, even though I betrayed him, and I love the new woman in my life as well. I'm lost and helpless, and I'm so ashamed of what I've done, but at the same time, I've never felt this passionate about another person, ever. I've always been known as a goody two-shoes, who was always a rule follower, and I just wonder what has happened to me. I hate what I've done to my husband, and have no idea where to go from here. I cheated on my husband only 2 months after our wedding, and I never intend to tell him. Background: early on in our relationship, we were long distance, and it was rough on both of us. We both cheated on one another, although my cheating was longer and more extensive. After we moved in together, he found a confession journal of mine. Why I didn't padlock the damn thing, I'll never know. Read it, confronted me, and also told me about his indiscretion. There was crying and a few days of bewilderment, but we got over it. Interlude: after getting very drunk at my best friend's wedding in 2006, I had a one-night stand with a friend of the bride who was just coming off a divorce. Damn, I played it off in my head as if I was doing a public service for the guy, getting him back on the track of actually like himself, which did happen. Actually, he went on to be a major player in a successful gubernatorial campaign, and ended up copping a job in the administration. However, after my walk of shame in the morning, I told myself no more. I wasn't going to do this to anymore, and I was going to turn over a new leaf. So, I moved in with him. There was the thing with the journal, and then nothing. He proposed, and we ended up getting married in 2009. The problem: 2 months after our wedding, I dropped my newly minted husband off at the airport to go away for a conference. Since I had driven to a major city to do this, I looked up a friend who lived in the city, to hang out and catch up. We'll call him Dan. 2 things about Dan: he's like a gentleman's gentleman. He opens doors, scoots you into your seat, and pays for everything. Chivalry is not dead in his eyes. Second, he towers over my 5 feet 9 inches height with his 6 feet 5 inches height. He's the only person I've ever met that makes me feel dainty. Either way, we hang out, talk, eat, drink a fuck ton of alcohol. Driven to confess by the ethanol, Dan blurts out how he hasn't had sex in over a year, and is beginning to doubt himself with women, and has even tried to think about guys. I make the appropriate soothing noises, and the evening goes on. We drink even more alcohol, including stopping on the way back to his apartment to pick up tonic for G&Ts, and once we get back to the apartment, we continue to chat. Dan had been unable to come to our wedding because of a work commitment, so I had actually brought the DVD with our wedding pictures on it to show him. That right, I was showing him my wedding pictures when things got nasty. I was sitting on his lap, because of no other chairs in his bedroom, and realized that I was wearing garters and stockings because they were pressed into him. One thing led to another, and all of a sudden, I was on the floor, in front of his fireplace, moaning for all I was worth, with the skirt of my dress hiked up around my waist. Things moved to bed eventually, and I'm pretty sure between the two of us, we woke up both his roommates. I later found out that it was the first time he had ever received oral. He had just turned 29, and also his first time doing anal. In my strange brain, I was kind of proud of all this, and very glad that he felt so much better about his sexuality and his prowess with women. Oh, and let me tell you, Redditors, in his year off, he had not lost his skill. The 3 or 4 times we had sex that night was fucking fantastic. In fact, I can still remember how sore my pussy felt the next day from him. God, it was good. However, on the drive back home the next morning, I had an attack of conscience. He'd already sent me some lurid texts, and one photo of his dick. I flipped out on him. I'm a married woman, you can't be sending my shit like that, and on in that fashion. It was pretty horrible of me. I told him not to text me until I figured out my brain a little better. Conclusion, and that brings us up to today, my friends. I've somehow managed to not tell my husband, keep up the friendship with Dan, and I have absolutely no intention of ever telling my husband. It would do nothing but hurt him. And, if I'm being honest with myself, having sex with Dan was a public service, and I had been faithful for over 3 years. Mainly the reason I'm confessing is that I'm weakening again, and I'm trying to figure out if I can see Dan again. TLDR, I'm a bad girl. Edit, I came here to confess, not to ask advice from people on my marriage. I will not be answering any comments containing the word divorce.
We hope you enjoyed this story. Thanks for watching and hope to see you in the next video. And before you go, please be sure to subscribe for more.